Yo, 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 what's going on, guys? Big Money Barber Show. My name is Cameron Linares. Welcome back to the show. Today we have a special guest that I didn't even meet him, but I first saw him at ClickFunnels Live 2022 when he walked on stage and gave a speech. And that speech changed the trajectory of basically my whole career. So we're just going to do this thing natural, no plan, just have a dope conversation with two dope people. So what's up, Josh?
What's up, bro? How are you, dude?
I'm good, man. How you
Dude,
doing?
I forgot that that's where you first saw me and I don't think you said we didn't meet there, right?
No, that was just the first time I was ever exposed to you.
All
Yeah.
right, that makes sense. So like what was it like what did you think of the dude, I had so many people coming up after my words. It was like it took me 4 hours to get back to my room. After 4 hours and like 10 minutes, I think I'd like my wife was like after 2 hours, my wife was like, I gotta go. And she
See
just
ya.
like
I'll
left,
meet you
right?
at the
Yeah.
booth.
And I was like, I'm a celebrity. Oh my gosh. It was awesome. But like how was the speech? How was like, yeah.
Oh, dude, speech was good. Like, I think the number one, I mean, the content was great too, but the thing that really like caught my attention was your energy. Like, there was a lot of people who speak. There's a lot of people who speak at Funnel Hacking Live, and I felt like you just brought an energy that like not very many people brought. And I'm all about like, I love the hype shit. Like, I'm like, yeah, let's go. So you just like
Yeah,
had
yeah,
me
yeah, yeah.
hyped up. I'm like, time to take over the world. Let's go. Josh is
Yeah.
about it.
Dude, I feel like that's especially in the content game and content not just being like video posts, but like message like presentation style, right? Like me, being on stage would be, content. But I feel like presentation is in today's day and age, like it is what sets people apart, right? Because like I feel like we live in this age of where you have to create content, right? Like to exist in business, basically, you have to create content. And so the
Yeah.
negative side of that is like everybody is doing it. So that means it's like it's really hard to like be different because like there's very few people in this world that like actually have something that's unique and different, right? That's not a bad thing. It just is, right?
Yeah.
Like
Very
Sam
few.
Ovens is like a super nerd and like he had something that's like kind of like you truly like unique or like different, right? Like most people, there's they're not like what they're selling or what they're presenting on, it's not that unique of a topic. It's just their take on the topic. And so like that's where presentation, I feel like just you gotta find your way to present in a way that is just different. That's where you can be unique. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And I feel like the longer I've been in this game and the higher level people I meet and like the high level operators, they're all about like modeling people who've done it before them and have done it better. They're like, it's
Yeah.
not copying them, it's modeling. And so like
Yeah.
model. And I used to feel like really guilty about it and feel bad about it. And it's like, I'm just copying what someone else is doing. But it's like, I mean, it's really hard, like you said, to come up with something that's fresh, brand new,
Yeah.
completely different. Because the
Yeah.
people who have like who are really winning at business and life, like they've already figured everything out. They've tried
Yeah.
everything. Or the people who blazed the trail before them tried it. So why make the same
Yeah.
mistake?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
like
man.
I don't even think everybody like I think there's a section of people that are like called or like talented in a way that is like like that is what they're good at is finding new unique things.
Yeah, the
And
trailblazers.
right. And like that's a special type of person, but for most people that's not the case. And like that's not bad like that's not a bad thing. That is just reality, right? And like most people are called to do something else. And so you just go and like it's better to try or to not to try new things and just to go and find out what is working and model it, but then bring your own unique style to the game, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's what makes it unique. It's what makes it different. And like I have found that the people like Brunson, right? Obviously Brunson's played a huge impact or had a huge role in my life, right?
Yeah.
But like Russell loves it when you copy it because then like he knows you're copying him and he's like, cool. Number one,
He
it's
encourages
working,
it. Yeah.
right? Number one, it's
Yeah.
working, right? But number two, then he's like, that means I'm the GOAT, right? And what is interesting though is that the people at that level, one of two things happens. Either A, they figure it out one time and they're like, oh, I figured it out one time. Nobody copy me because I don't want people are going to copy you regardless, right? And then they're no longer the best. Somebody else does it better. And now they're no longer there and they get because they stopped innovating, right?
Yeah.
Or like Russell, he's like, I'm the best at this, copy everything I'm doing. And the more people copy, the more he's getting better because he's getting more and more feedback and like whatever, right? Like there's nobody that pitches from stage better than Brunson, like best in the world, right? Like
Yeah.
he made
Yeah. He's no
$3.2
joke.
million from stage in 90 minutes. What? You know what I'm saying? Like that's so
Yeah. Those are
wild.
some big numbers. That's big numbers.
Like that's insane amounts of money.
Yeah.
$3.2
In a very short period of
million,
time.
right?
Yeah.
But it's like he started at like, 10,000 and then like 100 and then like people would copy and then he'd like do it and they go up and up and up and up and up. And so he just keeps getting better. So they keep copying me. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's good. I'm glad the energy was. I try to make it high. I'm an energy person for sure. I try to keep it really, really high in that room. I felt like the person, well, I won't talk crap about anybody, but like I feel like
Yeah.
other people in there, like they're just so boring, man. Some people are just so boring.
Dude, as a spectator who watched almost everybody speak, I can agree with that. Like, and your content just landed with me, like your origin story, like how you grew up, like kind of similar upbringing without like the religious aspect, because my
Yeah, yeah.
parents, they're not religious at all. But it was just like one of those stories. It was like your underdog story kind of that I could relate to. That was like, yeah, if this dude can do it, like he's inspiring me to go do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's crazy too. And it's interesting. Like, I know you work with a lot of barbers and stuff, which by the way, I don't know if we're posting this on video or where you're watching this, right? But like, guys, my hair game's starting to look good. Mr. Cameron over here, bro, you big money barber here is helping me out because it was pretty bad, huh? It was,
it was it was rough, a little
it,
rough.
it, it was
Yeah.
a little rough. You can be mean, bro. It was so
But
funny.
in
God.
your defense, like last week or the week before when I was looking for a barber for you, so I got on Google and was helping Josh find a barber out in Colorado because I'm all the way in Florida. And dude, it's dry out there. Like I was shocked at how difficult it was for me to find like a good barber or a decent barber because I felt like I would hop on here, I'd find like a good shop real quick, find the guy, and it'd be like 5, 10 minutes. Like 20, 30 minutes into my search, and like with the parameters you gave me, I was like, all right, Josh just might be screwed. Like,
Yeah.
like he might
But
be
that's why I
screwed
ended up
because
at like Floyd's, bro. Because I
yeah,
was
and I
like,
was like,
what's around here? I don't even know.
well, dude,
Right.
and there's like 3 Floyds within driving distance of your house.
Right. I live 3 minutes from one, right? It's next
Yeah,
door to where like my wife and I get groceries from, right? So
yeah,
like it was just like, okay, cool. That's what we're doing. But I don't know hair. And like I don't know style. That's not it's so funny. My wife always jokes. Like when my wife is much more like well,
like
stylish. Like she
style
understands,
conscious.
yeah,
Yeah,
much more, right? Everything, especially for like herself, like everything, Matt, like there's a reason for everything she does. Makes no sense. Like down to like what like mug color she's gonna bring, like with her outfit, and whether there's like a straw or not in it to match, and this color to the shoes. And it's like, I didn't even know that was a thing, right? And so like when we met, it like I was, dude, it was so bad. It was so bad. Like I was wearing like bright blue shirts with like golden sunglasses and a green necklace and like white pants and like it was just so bad. But like whatever, it was working for me, right? It kind of was like I was this young obnoxious kid on the internet and it worked.
dude, you stood out. You
Yeah,
stood
for
out at
sure.
least. Yeah.
For sure. I'm very glad I had no idea how much people were making fun of me. It was great, right?
I
But
don't
so
know. I think that you kind of seem like the person who wouldn't have cared even if they were.
that's true. That's true.
You're
Well,
like,
I would
hey,
have I
make
would have
fun of
turned it
me,
back
but
on
look at
that.
all, look at my, yeah,
Right. I would have been
yeah.
like, because I didn't value it. I didn't understand why it mattered. Right. Now
Mhm.
I value it much more now. But like my gift is not style. Right. I can't draw. I don't know how to match. Like that's not my gift. My gift is words. That's my art. Right.
Yeah.
Like I know how to talk and present and like I just love studying psychology, right? This is why like you and I are friends because when you're like, I'm not a barber, but I'm a big money barber. I'm like, yes,
Yeah, that's
yes,
right.
right? Like I'm like this. By the way, if anyone's listening here, and if you need like good hair advice or whatever, like go follow him. But also if you are a barber listening and you want to make money, like listen to Cameron. He's like legit and he's super dope.
Yeah.
So I like him, right?
You're ready
And
to boss
so
up? Hit me up.
that's right, boss dude, like actually boss up. Like the guy knows his
Yeah.
stuff. But so this is why we related. And because I was like, okay, cool. Like you get it. I trust your opinion. And it's so annoying because like I trust my wife's opinion too. I do. I love my wife, right? But my wife, it did not present it. Not that my like did anything wrong. I trust her. Like this is not to bash her in any way. She's amazing at it, right? But
Hmm.
like my wife couldn't really communicate to me why my style mattered, right? In relation to my brand. Like she tried and she was just like, well, like people think of you a certain way or this or whatever. And I'm like, do you see
So
what I've built so far? Right?
yeah, did you just take it as a more of she's telling me because she finds me more attractive versus it'll actually benefit my business? Like it was more
No,
of a
actually, no,
personal.
because I even
Okay.
think if she would have taken that angle more, of like that she would find me more attractive, like
Hmm.
that maybe I would have like paid more attention to it. I'm sure. I mean, that kind of like mentioned, but it was like my wife is not in my world, right? And she's a
Yeah.
little bit more involved now, but like as far as like my business is concerned, like she's not really in that world, right? And so like
Got
she
it.
doesn't even get like the fact that like Russell Brunson walks around in bare feet and like, like and she like that's she's like, oh my gosh, like but so but that Brunson was my, effect. But then you come along, and by the way, my wife loves you. She's like, yo, keep hanging out with him. Your style's improving. Like she's all like,
Cool.
she's pumped, right? Yeah. So she's very much on board
Well,
with
I'm
this,
glad
right?
I can have some influence on you as well.
Yeah, yeah. There we go, right? But when you sent like the video or wherever it was, and you were like, hey, you're gonna go be creating all this content or whatever. And I had gotten my hair cut really well for Funnel Hacking Live when I spoke on there, right? It was like very short. It was slick back. It wasn't probably not as good as it is now. But like I actually listened to my wife then because I was like, okay, cool. Like this is something where I don't want to mess it up. And so I'm gonna err on the side of being like more professional because I'm not exactly sure how I want to brand myself. Because like, dude, I literally would have walked out there. I'm not kidding. I would have walked out there in flip flops, white jeans, a black t-shirt, and a backwards hat. Like that. That's actually how I would have walked out on stage,
Yeah.
right? And my
Yeah.
wife was like, "You cannot." And I'm like,
Yeah. But
"Okay, this is a
first
big
time
enough."
on stage, like there
Well,
at
no, I've
Funnel
spoken on
Hacking
stages
Live.
before,
Well,
right?
first time at Funnel Hacking
At
Live,
Funnel
right?
Hacking Live, right?
Yeah. So
And so I'm
yeah.
like, I didn't really know, like, I'd been building my frameworks kind of in secret for a while, and I wasn't quite as loud, right, on social. So I didn't really know where I wanted my own look to go, right? And so I was
Yeah.
like, I'll err on the side of being conservative. So that like I had that. But like when you came along and you're like, hey, dude, like you're gonna come back, the content game, whatever. And then I think you said something like your hair is like the crown of your head. Now keep in mind,
Your
like
hair is your crown.
yeah, but up until that
Yeah.
point, up until like really even like Funnel Hacking Live, it wasn't. It's always been a hat.
Hmm.
I've worn a hat. Like I grew up on a farm, bro. It's always been a hat.
Now I'm surprised when I see you in a hat. I'm like, damn, he's
Right.
wearing a hat. Like he
Yeah,
never
no,
wears
dude.
hats.
Dude, it was in on the farm, it was like duck
Flat bill.
bill,
Oh, okay.
duck bill on the front, like every like this. And then I got out of the farm, I got in the social media game or whatever, and I got my first USA. It's a flat bill hat, right? And it said USA on it. My favorite hat I've ever owned. It was so much fun. And I don't remember what happened to it. We left it somewhere. It was like at an airport or like something. And I was just like devastated. Like my wife tried to find it again, couldn't, right? But that was my first flat bill. So then I got into flat bills because I was like, cool, I wear backwards flat bills. That was always it. Backwards flat bill hat, right?
Dude, that was the
Uh,
style too, though. That was like the thing. Yeah.
but mine didn't match, dude. Mine were just random. I was like, that one looks good. That was good. Let's throw it on, right? But then when
Yeah.
you like now that I'm like a little bit more, I actually like looking like I like a fresh haircut. Like I actually like, okay, cool. I've started to wear suits, which is never a thing, but I've like found some blazers that I actually really like that my blue one. I really like it, right?
That maroon one's sharp too.
That
I like the
maroon, I love
maroon.
that one
Yeah.
too, right? I like the blue
Yeah.
one just a little bit better for branding and stuff, but I love the maroon one when I'm like, if I'm going to speak on stage, I want to pop, right? I want to
Yeah.
level up. So when you were like, yo, it's like the crown of your head, you got to get it right. And there's a way to actually do that. Like, I'm like, bro, you don't understand how dumb I am when it comes to like styling my hair. Like you don't understand. And then you sent me the video and I was like, oh, I could do this.
Yeah. You just
That
need
got me. That
some
got me hooked,
guidance.
dude. That's right. It got me
You
hooked,
need
dude.
some
And it's like,
guidance.
it really did show how like knowledgeable you were about your craft, right?
Hmm.
Because you could like even just from a camera distance, right? Like over the camera, you could like spot how my hair laid and like how fine it was and like what it just by like looking at it. And that was
Yeah.
very impressive, right? For someone that is like, you're that good at hairstyling. And also, here's why I trust you, right? and you like money and you like the business side of it and you like play that. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll listen to you. Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like
Yeah. It
that's,
was like something I noticed like right away.
yeah.
Like, because I always notice people's hair. It's just like my thing, obviously. But our relationship wasn't to a point where I was like comfortable just telling you like your hair was jacked up. Like,
Yeah.
man, it's because some people can get really offended by that.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know if your barber was like your friend, or
Yeah.
a
Definitely
family
not.
member. But I do have a question for you. So, kind of going back a little bit, do you feel like since you've stepped up your style game and your appearance game, do you feel like that directly correlates with making more money? Like, look good, feel good, do better?
I think it directly correlates. So short answer is yes. Um, the answer I would say it directly correlated to the level of clientele that I worked with,
Got it.
because I could still wear what I wore before and I could still get clients, because for me, like, I've just studied persuasion and influence and said, like, that's my game. And it clearly
Yeah.
worked for me. And that what, like, one of my best friends, Brad, super successful, like owns 3 companies and all this, or whatever. When I asked him, like, what's my best quality? And he's like, dude, you have a delusional amount of self-confidence, almost to the point of it being unearned. Right. So like, I
You're
can,
like, thanks.
yeah, no, I was like, yeah, you're dang right. I do. Right. Like, I was like he was meaning it as a compliment, but he was like afraid it was going to be an insult. I'm like, yes, no, that's what I want people to think. Like, I almost like people like, how do you have so much self-confidence even though you haven't done anything? I mean, I have, right? But like, you know what
You
I'm saying?
have,
Like,
yeah,
because I'm
absolutely.
like, dude, like, I feel I'm very, very confident in who I am. And I've been attacked for it. Like, people will tell me that I'm covering up for insecurities and that I'm like all this. I'm like, no, hold on. You used to be right. But then I paid a mindset coach like $100,000 and worked like $100,000, right? And I worked with her for a year and a half. And like, I worked through all my crap, right? Like,
Yeah.
I worked through it, and I was like, I got down to the core of my insecurities and what drove them, and like why I was so all this. And so now this is why, like, on Funnel Hacking Live, there's a difference between confidence and arrogance, right? Like, before I was arrogant. I was arrogant because I wanted people to think I was cool because I was covering up for insecurities from, past trauma. But now
Yeah.
I'm like, no.
100%.
There's not arrogance, right? I know that I'm dumb in a lot of areas, right? But also I'm like, I also am insanely confident in myself. And I believe the more confident you are directly impacts your ability to make decisions on things and directly impacts how smart you are, right? So like, because I'm so confident in my ability to figure things out, I can figure things out. But if I wasn't confident I could figure things out, I couldn't figure things out. So I'm just like, why
And
not just be confident all the time?
you probably just wouldn't execute. Like, if you didn't believe in yourself, you wouldn't
Right.
pull the trigger on it.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
take risks. I wouldn't like
No.
shoot my shot. Right. I was
Yeah.
talking to, actually, like one of the other guys in the program, Ryan. Right. And I was talking with him, and I was like, I looked at how much money I made last year. Right. And then I
Yep.
like correlated it down to like, how many days did I really make money? And it was like, out of the whole year, and this is like the industry that I'm in. So every industry is a little bit, like, has different things. Like, the whole year, I made like 80% of my money on like 8 days. Like, imagine if I would have had a few bad days during those times where I wasn't confident. I
Would have
wasn't
made
shooting a shot.
a big impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Huge
going back
impact.
to your question, as far as like dressing nice, dude, or like playing the part, or like this, absolutely, because now people that, I mean, Brad's a perfect example of this, right? Brad at least gave me a shot. Most people don't. Got something on my lip. Brad. So when I dressed that way and I had the golden sunglasses, the backwards hat, and the green thing, whatever, right? I was on Facebook Live the whole time, right? So Brad saw me in the Denver airport. We were both going to the same place. We had never met before, right? And when we got to the place, we were right. So he knew who I was because I was this obnoxious kid on the internet, right? And then we get to the place, we go to the speaker dinner, and it's so funny because I just end up in these rooms. I wasn't actually a speaker, but everybody else was, and I'm just, delusional self-confidence.
You're
It's
likable.
amazing how fat, right? It's amazing how far it'll take you, right?
Yeah.
But he requested to sit next to me, and this is his own words, right? So that he could write me off forever, and so that he could confirm his suspicions that I was completely full of crap, right? And then he never had to talk to me ever again. This was his reason, right?
Yeah.
So we sit down next to each other, and we talk for 4.5 hours. Everybody else left. It was just him and I left in the restaurant. They actually ended up kicking us out of the restaurant. It was Ruth Chris Steakhouse, right? Because they were closing. And we, like, for 4.5 hours. And he was like, dude, you like are like, whoa, like, this is awesome. And we have now,
You're legit.
Right. You're legit.
Yeah.
He's so smart, right? I was like, whoa, this is mind blown. But the reason that he had that perception of me was directly correlated
To your
to how I
appearance.
presented myself, for sure. Right.
Yep.
And so now, like, thankfully, he gave me a chance. But when I think back, I go, how many people didn't give me a chance? Right. How many people did? So
And you'll
now,
never know. You'll never
right,
know.
never know. Now, thankfully, like, once again, I'm confident enough. I'm like, all right, whatever, live and learn. Here we go. Let's keep rocking. Right.
Yeah.
But now I'm very aware of perception. I'm very aware of like branding and like this or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I think you told me it. It was like, I always want to be the best dressed person in the room. And I'm like, okay, I'm not at that level yet, because I'm like, I don't even know how to be the best dressed person in the room yet. But I always want to err on being like one level more dressed up than I need to be. Right.
Yeah.
Because then everybody else, when they're looking at me, they're going to be like, oh, okay. All right. And my hair is a big part of that. Yeah, good.
Being the best dressed, sorry to interrupt, but being
the
best dressed person in the room isn't always beneficial, because sometimes I feel like people will look at me like, dude, what a douche. Like he really had to pull up like that. Like, and I'm like, yeah, I just like to look good.
But for you, I think it works though, because of your industry.
I get away with it a little more because I'm in the industry, but I think that it sometimes, and I'm not saying this to be cocky, but it's true, that I will accidentally present myself in an intimidating way because I will overdress to a point to where it makes people feel uncomfortable and underdressed.
Yeah.
So it's also kind of like a power move. So like, kind of.
Did you see Jordan Peterson go on Joe Rogan?
What was that?
Did you see Jordan Peterson go on Joe Rogan this last time he went on Joe Rogan?
Yeah.
Bro, he showed up in like a 3-piece tux.
Yeah, dude. Was that the one where he had the heaven and hell tux on?
No, this was the one.
No, the first time he went on, he was like black and white, like he was going to the
ball. I mean, he's been on multiple times, but like one of his most recent ones, maybe he's come on before that. I know he had heaven and hell on one, but one of them he showed up. It was all black. It was, like suit and like, or I mean, like a black tie event, like 3-piece tux, bow tie, like all.
I remember, like, he looking super sharp.
Right, but then like Joe Rogan's there in like a t-shirt, right? Yeah. And it's just like I don't know. It almost felt too much, right? Like for that setting and environment.
In that setting, I probably wouldn't have done that, because dressing better than a t-shirt, you don't have to wear a 3-piece suit. Maybe, just something a little nicer than a t-shirt, button up. You would have been the best dressed guy on that.
Yeah, or even just a jacket and a blazer, right?
But like when we were discussing frames, like, are you really going to go on a Joe Rogan's podcast and try to outdo him in anything? Like,
right.
I mean, he's the go-to podcast. So
right. But he was trying. That's actually a great point, right? With the whole framing thing, because like
it's like a power frame when
maybe but his power frame. But Peterson's power frame is intellectual, not with dress.
100%.
Right. Yeah. So he beats Joe in the power frame intellectually, for sure.
For sure.
But he tried to I don't know. And like Jordan Peterson dresses well anyway. But it was like he dressed better than he himself normally dresses. And it was like,
yeah. It was like abnormally clean.
Right. For him even. Yeah. So I do, dude, dressing the part, having my hair in style, there's a confidence booster thing. It also, the more, it's funny, the more successful I get, whatever that means, right? But the more reach I have, or the more influence I have around, people, or get around higher level people, like, when I had nothing, I thought the higher I get, the more confidence, right, that I would have, right? Because I'm like, I'm doing stuff now. But then you get around people and you're like, well, I'm really small, right? And then you like trade up and you're like, well, I'm actually tiny. And then you go to the next level and you're like, who even am I, right? So in those settings, I have found that it is best to not sacrifice who you are at all, right? I'm very, very much myself at every level, right? But to take away as many possible things that could potentially cause downside for someone to beat up on, or not take you seriously, right?
Yeah.
And so like you show up to a meeting in a backwards hat and flip-flops, if you are Jordan Peterson level smart, or you are Zuckerberg level genius, or Brad Gibb level, like smart when it comes to like money, can you get away with that? Yes, because you 100% can make up for it, for sure. If that's the topic of conversation, right?
Yes.
But like I'm not overwhelmingly smart, right? Like I've studied things. I know psychology very, very well, but it's like I wasn't born with any special talents. I didn't come from money, right? Like, so like now if I show up like that, I'm already at a disadvantage. I have to earn, the respect back. Where if I just take away anything to
Yep.
where when I show up just by someone looking at me, right? They go, oh, I do not have a negative view of that person, right? It airs on the side positive. Now I'm ahead. And I think that's
Yep.
what it did for me, 100%.
Yeah, so it's like when we hire new barbers, it's something we teach them, and it's really cool because I can watch their progression throughout like brand new barber to being like one of the highest paid barbers in our region, and teaching them how to dress. I shouldn't say teaching them how to dress, but influencing them in a manner that gets them to care about their appearance more is a game changer. Like for example, one of our barbers, Brian, he used to come to work, and I used to like be this close to sending him home like, dude, what are you wearing? He would come in like cargo shorts, like these white beat up Nikes, and like this super old t shirt that said mullet toss on the back. And I'm like, dude, like, what are you doing? So, like, I would have one on one meetings and I would explain to him this exact thing that, you know, unfortunately, I really hate the term like, don't judge a book by its cover because everybody judges a book by its cover. Like, sorry,
100%.
but
Now, the
I
side note, you get to control what that cover looks like. But anyway, continue.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So like control the cover, you control their perception of you, their immediate perception of you. So
Yep.
watching him now when I go in there, I'm like, dang, dude, he's got like a gold chain, super nice button up, dress shoes on, like his Ray
Yep.
Bans,
Yep.
and his prices have tripled. The level of client he's getting now, he's getting like business owners in his chair and people who are like really high earners. So his tip money goes up. Everything is improved for him without his technical ability needing to improve, but he just
That
improved
much. Yeah.
his presentation. Yeah, so
So
it's pretty cool.
how do you how do you do that? Like, how do you take someone from just like an average barber to like one of the highest paid? Because I know you are, right? And I've seen
Yeah,
like you do it with other people, right? So like, what's your process for doing that? Because obviously, I mean, there's influence involved in that, but I'm sure there's like a systematic way of like that you're actually going through and doing that.
yeah. It's all just systems, really. And
Oh, really?
barbers want to overcomplicate it and think that like it all
Oh,
comes down to your technical.
oh,
Okay, you're good.
sorry.
No,
Go
you're
ahead.
good.
Both take a drink right there. Sorry, continue. I didn't
Yeah.
mean to this.
No,
I'm just
I
gonna
was
cough it up. Yeah.
getting low key cotton mouth,
Yeah.
but barbers want to overcomplicate it and think that it's all about your technical ability when really it's not, because we'll take someone like 2 years out of school when they're not even technically like a great barber and have them outpricing everyone in our area, and it's all because it really comes down to formulas and just basic math equations and knowing when to implement a price increase based off your retention level and your booking rates. Like it has nothing to do with how good you are at cutting hair. If you're booked
Mm.
95% of the time, if you're booked 95% of the time every single day and I raise your prices, you drop down to like 90%, 85% booking, you still don't lose any money because the increase in prices closes the gap. But now, as you rebuild your booking percentage, you're making more. So you're kind of just like
And
leveling
the
up.
higher prices don't drive people away,
They do. So, like, if your booking percentage is
but not
95%,
like obviously it sounds like they keep coming back though, right? Or like other
so like
people.
like a really high percentage of people will come back, and especially like we teach you how much to raise your prices by, and like because like you can't go and just be like, hey, double my prices. You
Yeah, yeah,
could, I
yeah.
mean, but you're going to suffer like a pretty catastrophic clientele drop.
Yeah.
But if we do smaller price increases regularly and you keep your level of booking, so like when you're 90-95% booked, it's really hard to get in with you. Like your people know, like if I miss my
Mm.
appointment, I probably can't get a haircut for 3 weeks. So it's supply and demand. I can only supply this many haircuts, but my demand is here. So I raise my prices, demand decreases a little bit, my supply remains the same, and we just rebuild, increasing that demand again. And you just do this over and over and over and over
And
again.
nobody ever does this. Like nobody teaches this stuff because, and that's what I
Nobody
mean.
teaches this, nobody does this. And we've discovered this over the last 5 years by basically just doing it on ourselves, because I knew that like in order to build my businesses and scale businesses, I can't be behind the chair for 40 hours. So how do I double, triple my income and decrease my time behind the chair at the same time simultaneously?
Got it.
So we started implementing these structures and systems and formulas, And it's really funny because our barbers, like even now, barbers who've been doing this for 3 years, they understand and they're still fearful. Be like, hey, you're going to $55 haircut. Oh man, like my clients are gonna like, what if they leave? I'm like, have they left you yet? No. And I'm like, then what are you worried about? They're not gonna leave you. And if 5% leave you, you're not gonna lose any money because your price increase closed that gap. So now you rebuild that 5% and
And you make up more time.
now you're making more money. So
Dude, it's so
it's actually really simple. It's not easy, but it's simple.
yeah. Well, it's interesting too, because like as someone who uh you know, I make a fair amount of money, right? And when I go to buy things, like I rarely buy the cheap things for the things I care about, right?
Yeah.
So like clothes for me, I don't really care about clothes, right? So I'm like,
Mhm.
whatever, I just buy whatever. But like whenever I go shopping with my wife for like anything that's branded, if there's like $100 option or $150 option, and I'm like, well, what's the difference? And she's like, well, like the quality of the clothing or like the like whatever. I'm like, okay, I want the more expensive one because I'm like, it'll last longer, it'll look better, right? And so with haircuts, like growing up on a farm, dude, is whatever's cheapest, $6.99, $7.99, right? Like that's
Yeah.
great clips, right? But now, dude, like if I go to somebody, I remember when I was actually looking around out here the first time, and people, I was like, how much is it for a haircut? And they're like $20. I'm like, hey, I don't know if I want 20%, right?
Yeah.
$20. That's not even like, how are you even making money on that? Right. And so
Yeah.
now when someone's like $50 for a haircut, right? I think mine, I don't even know what I paid for it first. You found me here, right?
Yeah.
I took your advice, by the way.
What was that?
Tipping her $20, right?
Nice. She was
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
stoked.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
great, right? But people that have money, they want to pay higher prices because the status thing of it is I'm like, okay, well then, and not in a condescending way, but then I'm like, okay, but then like I know broke people are not getting this. Like I know this
Yeah.
person isn't catering to people that are broke. Like they actually are taking their time. Like I want to pay people well, right? And if I can pay people really well, then I expect them to do a good job, right? And it's not that like the haircut's any different, right? I'm sure that the girl that cut my hair didn't do anything that inherently different than anyone else. But I'm like, but I'm paying her enough to where I know she can actually take the time to do it, right?
Yeah.
Where she can actually go and do a good job with it. And so for anyone, this is why I love, like, I loved how your brain works when you were explaining this to me, right? Because I'm like, for anyone that's not making enough money with hair right now, first off, freaking listen to Cameron. What are you doing? Like, Joe, just do what he says. I promise you, you'll make more money. But
Guaranteed.
it's interesting because you're influencing your barbers. Well, your barbers are influencing their clients' perception of the actual haircut and service itself,
Yeah.
right? And by even changing nothing about the actual haircut, the perception of it goes up, right?
Yeah.
Because you're charging more money for it. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And so for someone with money, they want that. It's
Yeah.
so interesting.
Yeah. It is really interesting. And it was one of those things that like we kind of just discovered unintentionally, or I discovered unintentionally because it just started working so well for me. And I'm like, oh, okay, there's something here. Then
Yeah.
we started really diving into it. And then, and it was really interesting too, is as my prices got really high, I thought that I was going to get less people wanting me to cut their hair,
Mm.
but it was the opposite. Instead, I was getting just as many people wanting me to cut their hair, just higher level people.
Yep. I bet you
So it
have
was
more
like
people wanting you to cut your hair though.
like a lot of people wanted me to cut their hair. My supply was low, demand was high, but the level of people that wanted me to cut their hair. And another interesting thing was is the higher level the person was, and by level I mean like the more money they made, the more
Yeah.
influence they had,
Yep.
business owners, whatever they were, the easier their haircuts were too. Like the
Because they probably
more
get the same
simple
thing
they
every
were.
time. Yeah.
They get the same thing, just like simple gentleman's cut, like a 15-minute haircut. And I'm charging top dollar. So the haircuts got easier, the tips got better, more money was coming in, the level of people I was having conversations with. And that's another huge thing that like a lot of barbers don't understand is as you're doing this, you're having these higher level people come in who you get to talk to for 45 minutes while you cut their hair and they pay you. So you get to have conversations with people who are much smarter than you, who make way more money, and they're paying you to do it. So every time they
Crazy.
come in, I would be leveraging that situation like, okay, you have made a ton of money in real estate. Like, let's talk about what you do. Like,
Yeah.
come on. Yeah.
What's the most
So
amount of money you've ever charged for a haircut?
most amount of money I've ever charged for a haircut, like just one haircut,
Just a one-off thing.
like 300 bucks.
$300. That's freaking
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like $300 for a haircut. That's like
Yeah.
old Josh is like, who the frick would pay that amount? But now I'm like, for a one-off thing, right? Like,
On a rare
yeah,
occasion. Yeah.
for the experience of it, right? Like if it would like all, I'm like, I understand why someone would pay $300 for a haircut.
I think
I
a
can all
lot.
good.
Oh,
No, no,
so I think a lot of it had to do with my ability to hold these conversations with these higher level people too. Like it
yeah,
wasn't just empty conversation for 45 minutes. It was like, so like that's how I met my first mentor was he sat in my chair and he saw potential in me and he's like, he's older and he's like, it's really rare for me to meet someone young like you who has as much potential and drive as you
yeah,
do.
yep,
So I get as much as you do by sitting here and having this conversation because I don't get to have this conversation with very many people.
yeah.
So yeah, it was cool to being able to provide value to someone who just wanted to serve me.
And I think everyone should take notes on that because I truly like. First off, I believe that there's a lot of negative perception of wealthy people, right? And having come from a place of nothing, like I grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere without any money, like no money, right? And like it's so funny, like people like that I grew up around, they're like, well, we're broke, like we don't have any money, but like we're doing all. I'm like, no, comparatively to actual money in the world, like broke on broke on broke, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so coming from that world, and then now like hanging out with, you know, billionaires, people like Russell Brunson, right? ClickFunnels was $1 billion valuation at one point, right? And like there are jerks at the high level, but there are just as many jerks at the broke level, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not a money thing, right? And so when you think about successful people and you think about people that are just good-hearted people, I genuinely think that a lot of people that have wealth, at least at one point or another in their life, have struggled with or have battled the thoughts of either like guilt or like how to give back or like what they should do with it. Like these are not all greedy people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the way that I have seen so many of these people, and even I feel myself, and I'm like nowhere near that level of wealth, not even close. But like I watch these people, and a lot of the ways that they give back is by being able to go and mentor the younger generation, right? And it's weird
Yeah.
in the coaching space because then it gets all whatever. But like from outside of that, right? It's like they genuinely do. And so when you understand that by being someone that is eager, right? By going out there and like being like, I am just driven and I want to learn, I want to do. These people are looking for people like that. They love people like that. And I genuinely believe so many of the doors that I have opened that people are like, how'd you open those doors? Right? Two reasons. Number one, I love this quote by, gosh, I can't Harry something. I can't think of his last name, but it says, you will notice that the people who influence you are the people that believed in you. Right.
Oh yeah, that's a good quote. You mentioned it the other day, and I was like, oh,
Right. It was
that's
so
such a good
because
quote.
it goes to say if you want to have influence over someone else, believe in them, like genuinely believe in them, and
Yep.
you will influence them. Right. And so what's interesting is I think so many of the doors that I had opened up is number one, I was hungry. Like I wanted to learn, I wanted to do the work, and I became someone that people could believe in and like actually like put a vote of confidence in to where if they taught me something, I wasn't just going to ignore it. I was going to do something with it. Right. And so like
Mm-hmm.
Brunson for sure. Right. Brad, like these people, like they saw the hunger. And now I was, I had talent and to a certain extent, there was things that I also provided them, but like the doors that were open was because of that. But then secondly is I also believed in them.
Yep.
Like, right. Like, so when I like listened to them, I was like, ooh, tell me more. Right. And I was like, if you say you're smart at something, I have no reason to doubt you. Prove, like, let me learn. And I would like believe that they, like, what they were doing was like genuine. And like, a lot of people hate rich people. And so like rich people, successful people, like getting around those people, when they feel like people are genuinely interested, at least this is my experience, right? When they feel like
Mhm.
people are genuinely interested and they will open up, right? And there's a lot of them in that world. And so like for me, dude, I love working with rich clients, right? That's my thing. I'm like,
Yeah.
we do, it's very similar. We do a lot of the same stuff, right? Like you do it with barbers, right? And I do it with like business owners, right? But like we do a lot of the same things, which is like if you want to get around rich people, don't like people are like, well, how should I price it? Or I'm like, it doesn't matter, right? Like take a genuine interest, know the numbers and like stuff that you have to make work, but like really take a genuine interest, really go out there, have these conversations, build these relationships, or whatever. That's how you have massive amounts of influence over people. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yep. 100%. That's a
Fascinating.
really good point. And I think that like you mentioned it with Brad about him, like his initial response to you was like, I need to sit by this guy to write him off forever. But you were able to unintentionally like prove him wrong, and like prove yourself by being that
Yeah.
hungry young kid who is a rarity.
Yeah.
And I think like being that person is like you're one of the few. And
Yeah.
as I get older and like the more barbers I work with, the more I appreciate that, because I feel like I do that now.
Yep.
Like to
Yeah.
where I'm like, I meet like 1 in 50 barbers maybe, to where I'm like, all right, this kid or this guy, like he can really crush it,
Yeah.
because he cares enough and he's ambitious enough and he has the drive, and he doesn't have ego getting in his way, and he's like willing to take criticism. And I feel like those people are rare. Those people are
And by
rare.
the way, if you're listening right now and you're wondering if I'm that barber or if I'm even that person, if you know you're not a barber listening, but especially if you're a barber and you're like, is that me? Is this what? Oh, I guess I'm now the host. Camera should be hopping right back on. But like, if you're that person listening right now, the answer it is you are that person if you choose to be. Right here it comes. We lost him for a second. I'll wait till he comes back on. And we are
All right,
almost back.
cool.
There he
I
is.
don't know what happened there. My phone just started like glitching out.
You're all
My
good.
camera. Okay. Yeah. Sorry
Good.
about that.
No,
Sorry
you're
for the
good.
interruption.
I was like, if you're watching right now, you're a barber, or you're even not a barber, but especially if you're a barber, like if you're wondering, like, am I that person? Am I the one in the 50? The answer is like, if you are, if you choose to be, like that's
Oh yeah,
literally the only
100%.
difference. Like this is the greatest thing. Like you do not need special talent. You do not need special ability. You do not need to be bored from money. It doesn't matter the mistakes you made. Like I came from nothing, right? Now,
Yeah, me too.
give my parents credit where their credit is due. My parents taught me how to work hard. My parents taught me morality. My parents taught me right and wrong. Like all they taught me the important stuff, right? I'm not especially
Mhm.
talented. So like you get to choose to be that person. And I would take that one step further, dude, to say, you know, I'm a big believer in coaching. I'm a big believer in coaching, right? And I've spent so much money on coaching. And I used to buy coaching with the thought process and the intention of I want to learn a specific process and like I'm buying this to get this result and blah blah blah. And like there are some programs that are structured like that, typically courses and like things like that. There are,
Yeah.
right? But like if you're going into a program like from a high level person and you're going into someone that has the knowledge and skills and you think that before entering that program, you know what you want to learn, like really? Like that's kind of naive. And I did this, right?
Yeah.
Now when I buy programs, I go, okay, I want to make sure that the program is promising the direction that I want to go and that the person that I'm getting around, like, you know, has the results or whatever, right? But what I'm there to do is to like, I'm there to learn from them and to watch what they are doing. And I've gotten so much more value out of coaching programs than people that take the same coaching program because they're looking for some hack or some system that they're going to just like implement quick and get a quick result. Where I'm looking like, how did this person show up, teach? What are they even like not even showing that they're doing, right? And being like in that proximity of that. And when you come in with that mentality and you're not just looking for what you can get from it, but like literally like, okay, I'm here to like learn from you and like study, and you show up with that level, like not only do you get so much more out of it, but I promise you, the person that's coaching likes you way more
Yeah.
and they
I
will
could
do
I
more to
could
help
see
you.
that for sure. So do you think that like when you go into coaching, you're learning beyond the proximity of like what you're actually being taught, like you're paying attention to how this person speaks, like everything that they do, so
100%.
you're trying to pull the full value or maximum value out of being in the vicinity of this person
100%.
versus just what they have provided in a course.
100%. And
Yeah.
I even go so far as to say, like, for example, I joined a program recently with a coach who he's crazy controversial, bro. He's so controversial, right? But guess what? I did not buy the program solely for what the program is going to teach me. I was like, I want to see how this person is different or the same from what they portray, how they talk differently or the same, what they actually focus on. Because like I get like, dude, I understand the online world is my world. I'm not bashing to any way, shape, or form. This is part of the game, and I love this. There is a limited amount of what you can show online. Even if you try
Yeah.
to be completely like there's only so much someone can garnish, right? But if
Yep.
you're on conversations with people, you're in Zoom meetings with them, you're in person with them, or like whatever, right? And someone is actually successful in crushing it, right? Oftentimes they don't even know why they're successful in crushing it. They know the path, they know like the vehicle that they used, but a lot of times they don't even see the big picture of what's actually working or what's not, right? And so like I go in to learn to get around them, right? And to be like, I want proximity. And what's interesting is like, so for example, I coach with Sam Ovens, right? And Sam Ovens is one of the most successful people in the online course space to do it, right? And he sold his company consulting.com. Now he has school. I'm actually an investor in that, right? But it's interesting because Sam is like so structured, so ridiculous. Like that course covers every single detail. If you just follow the steps, you will be successful, right?
Yeah.
But then I went through his course. It was the best course I've ever been through, by far, the best course I've ever been through. The most detailed, thought through, like get results course or whatever. I joined his mastermind because I wanted to get around Sam.
Yep.
And I went out there and it's way less structured, right? It's much more just like kind of like a free for all thing. And you'd watch Sam talk or teach or whatever, and you'd realize just from an outside perspective that he didn't like he didn't even realize right away what was making him successful in certain areas that he had not thought through and put in the course. Because people would ask him stuff like outside the course, right? And I was like, oh dang, he doesn't even like not that I knew, right? But he would say that and he'd be like, I think I kind of did like this. And I'm like, oh wait, no, you definitely did more than that, right? And so you'd watch him like kind of like go through and like kind of think about it or whatever, or he would give advice to somebody, be like, try that. And then they'd come back and be like this, and it would adjust. And I'm like, oh, so like they don't even realize everything that they're doing, right? But now I will have experiences now where I'm like, what would I do in this situation? I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what Sam was doing here. And he didn't know to teach that. But because of the proximity, right? Because of being around him, because of like being in that, you're like, okay, I got it. Make sense?
Yeah,
and so
100%. 100%.
that's why I'm so careful. Like, that's why I'm like, yo, if you want to make more money, you can watch all the YouTube videos you want. That's great. You will not make as much money as if you just get around someone that's making a lot of money as a barber. Like if you are a barber and you want to make more money, get around Cameron, right? Like if I want to make more money on internet marketing, I go get around Russell Brunson, right? I go get around these people that are making more money, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And do you think, absolutely, to me, it makes total sense. And do you think that like a big part of that is by being in the proximity of these people, it helps create that belief shift within you to like, oh, I can do this now. Like Cameron grew up poor, zero entrepreneurial input throughout his whole life, but he made it. And like, because I feel like that's one of the things that attracted me to you is you helped shift that belief that I had about myself to like, oh, okay, I can do this.
Yep. Dude, 100%. And with that too, I think that so being a coach and someone that has coached a fair amount of people, what's shocking to me, dude, it is probably the most fascinating thing about being a coach is that, well, quick story time. When Russell would tell me I interviewed Russell one time and he was like, I asked him what the secret to growing ClickFunnels was and his coaching programs and all that. He's like, dude, people think that I get up on all these stages and do all these webinars and I'm on stage, like all this, trying to sell them ClickFunnels. He's like, I've never tried to sell ClickFunnels. I'm like, what? I'm like, bro, I've literally watched you pitch so many times. What do you mean? He's like, dude, the number one thing that I do is I just try to create belief. That is it. He's like, because if I can get them to believe my vehicle, they will buy whatever I put in front of them. And he's like, the same thing is true with coaching. He's like, your job is not to go and give them some revolutionary information inside of your coaching program. He's like, there's nothing you can show them that they can't go find on YouTube. There's not, right?
Yeah, nah,
But so
not
for me,
really.
like what's
No.
shocking to me, dude, is that like 80% of my job as a coach is not to teach new information. 80%, maybe even more, is to literally just make someone believe that they actually can do it. Right.
Yeah.
And this is why being around people that just normalize, I shared this in one of our groups that you were in, right? But like, I just paid a coach of mine a lot of money, right? And to help me like do some marketing stuff. And like, I told him how much money that I wanted to take home in a year. And he like laughed. He was like, what? Like, that's pennies, bro. Right. And guys, we're
And I
talking like these are,
imagine to you, it was not a small sum of
it
money.
was not. And we're talking like lots of money. We're not talking like hundreds of thousands of dollars, more. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
He's like, bro, that's pennies. That's like that's like entry level for this game. Right. And when you're around, like he wasn't trying to like impress me. He wasn't trying to like, he was just like, what are you like, get on our level, bro. Like,
I have a question for you about that. So when you, and this was via text, you guys were texting?
yeah, we were going back and forth. Yeah.
So when you first received that text and you read that, did it create a belief shift in you to where like, all right, maybe I'm shooting too low and like I can actually go way harder and go way higher? Or how did you feel when you got that text?
Well, I mean, keep in mind, I've been working on myself and my response to, hard things for a long time. So I think it might be different than maybe if it's your first time, you might be like, oh my gosh, that's impossible. Right. I've definitely been there. But for me, my immediate thought was, and I messaged him this back. My immediate thought was, yep, I hired the right coach. Right. Because, and that's what I messaged him back. I literally was like, this is why I paid you. Right. Because I was like, okay, I don't know how I should be thinking and operating. So when you go and you're like, I want to make millions of dollars a year, but no one around you does that, you don't even know if that's like realistic or not. Right.
Yeah.
So then you get around people that they're like, that's literally peanuts. Right. Like you go to your mom, you go to your dad, you go to your best friends, you go to people around you, and you were to tell them, like, think about this. If you were to tell them, I want to double my income this year, most people would look at you and be like, you're crazy, dude. What the heck? Right.
Oh yeah. Yeah. 95% of people.
Right. Now imagine you were to go to somebody like this coach or whatever of mine, and you were to go, I want to double my income this year. He's like, what? Double it? Like, what the frick, bro? Like, why? Like, why not go 10 times? Like, you're not making, like, get up here. Yeah. All of a sudden you're like, whoa, wait a second. Like, that's a thing. There's a world where that exists. And by the way, I just said this on an earlier podcast too. I believe one of the biggest lies that has been fed to us and has been that we've been forced to adopt and believe unintentionally, by the way, by good-hearted people, is that the way that we know the world to work is the way the world works. It's not. It's a way the world works, but it's not the way the world works, right? And if you understand that that's a way the world works, then by definition, you can just go, well, what if I just found a different way the world works, right? And so think about this, for example. If growing up, if you made 6 figures, you were killing it, right? If you made $1 million in your lifetime, if you became a millionaire in your lifetime, that was success. Then
that was big success.
Right? Crazy. Yeah. Then I meet people where he's like, I make $1 million this year. And I'm like, whoa, that's a different reality. Different reality. And people will be like, well, yeah, Josh, not everybody can do this. Okay, but guess what? Then I met Russell Brunson. Russell Brunson made $3.2 million in 90 minutes. 90 minutes. Right? And you're like, okay, whoa, that's another reality. And then you go, okay, it can't get much better than that. And then you go, okay, Elon Musk made in 2021, $140 billion. For context, the richest man in the world, the richest man in the world was Bill Gates. Okay. That is Bill Gates' entire net worth for his entire life in 1 year. And you go, oh, that's a different world. Right. And so you go, okay, the longer that I choose to live in a reality that says this is how things are, the longer I'm going to stay there. But if I go to say, I'm going to go get around people that look at me and go, you are so, I'm just going to use the money example because it's like, that's my game, right? Look at me and
Yeah.
go, you are so broke. Get on our level. You have nothing more to do but to level up, right? Part of the reason I moved into my neighborhood now, like all my neighbors around me, like we just moved into super awesome, super big house, right? It's awesome. It's like $1 million house and all that, right? All my neighbors around me, like I'm the poor person on the block, bro. I'm like, okay, every morning I walk out and I look at all their toys. They got new toys every week. I feel like they got, I'm like, okay, level up, level up, level up, right? So going full the way back to the coaching thing, it's like the job as a coach is to create belief. And it's interesting because I don't even know if most coaches know that, right? I just happen to be in the coaching space for a long time and I've been around a lot of successful coaches, right? The job of the
Yeah.
coach is to create belief, not just to teach framework. Framework is just bring structure to belief, right?
Hmm.
And so for me, I look for people that have what I want. They have it without thinking about it, right? And then I go, okay, how do I get around that person? What are they offering? What do they think that I need in order to get to that level? And like, I mean, I pay attention to the program. I do, like I do the steps, but I'm like, I show up to get around them. Make sense?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so like for me as a coach, I want people around me. Like I want, like with people get in proximity to me, I want people to understand how influence works, even at like whatever level they're at. Like you literally have so much more influence than you realize. Right. So I want people to know influence. I want people to know persuasion. I want people to understand that like literally how they present themselves and the words that they say and how they show up and like what they show off and like all the things can persuade and influence not just like the people in direct influence. I'm talking like at the $100 million level, even if you're just right where you're at now. Right. And so
Mhm.
like, yes, I have a program that teaches people to, but I'm like, what you're really buying into is like, I want to show off to people is I'm like, yo, if you understand these games, all the rest of it becomes so easy. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so do you feel like there was one, like, so at one point in time, this was a breakthrough for you? So was this when before you hired your first coach, or was this your first coach and being within that proximity of the first coach you hired? Was that
Oh no,
no? Okay.
no, not the first coach I hired. The first coach I hired was awful.
Oh wait, okay, second coach. Because I think I remember the story about the first coach was the guy who told you just stay on the phone until they said yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Bro,
not a
I hired
breakthrough
his
with
sales
that
coach.
guy.
He's like, literally just stay on the phone until they say yes. And I would sit on sales calls for like 4 hours. The
Oh
client was like, I gotta
wow.
go. And I'm like, but you gotta buy, you haven't bought yet. And then I would like be all mad. And then I wasted 4 hours of their time. And it was bad, dude. It was really bad.
Yeah, and your own time, which is even more valuable to you than
So
theirs.
bad. Yeah.
But
No, I think the first one that I think really experienced that actually, I think the first time is I had hired a couple of good coaches and then I hired a coach where it was really bad. And then I
mhm,
realized that I'm like, those coaches were actually good at what they were doing. I didn't even realize why they were good. Right.
yeah,
And then I was like, oh, okay. Oh, that's why this was good. Cause like one of the coaches I hired, his content was actually pretty good. Like he was just like, he promised, like showed up weird. And it was just like, all, and I'm like, what even, I don't even understand. Right. And I'm like, why didn't I get nothing out of that? And I'm like, oh, I got nothing out of that because he didn't give me anything to follow him. Like he wasn't taking his own advice. And he like, it was just like, there was a disconnect. Right.
hmm,
So yeah, but yeah, 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 yeah,
okay, yeah. It's interesting because that was a pretty big major breakthrough for me, and it really changed a lot of things for me because not when you don't understand the importance of being in proximity of people who are much more successful than you don't really understand what you're losing. You know, like you're missing out on a lot. And once I made that breakthrough and I was like, wow, I have had some serious players in my chair and I didn't take advantage of it. I didn't recognize the proximity, or like I didn't recognize that I was in the presence of someone who could really change my life and didn't
yeah,
leverage it.
yep.
And I think that, yeah, so I meet a lot of people now, especially in the barber industry, who do that today. And they don't recognize, like, it's hard to determine whether they don't recognize it or they don't care. So that's,
I think I don't. I think that some people they think they recognize it, but they don't actually recognize what it actually is. If you were to be like, "Hey, do you realize this?" They'd be like, "Yeah, totally," but they don't get it, right? They don't
yeah,
actually believe, right? Because like not caring infers that like you know what something is and you're intentionally and choosing to discard it. I feel like, right? Whereas
Yep.
it's like not recognizing it is like you might think you know something, but you don't actually recognize that, right? So
Yeah. Okay.
it makes sense.
So
Yeah. So
yeah, you don't know what you don't know, kind of thing.
yeah, you don't. And when you get around people and you see what they say is important, whether consciously or subconsciously, right? Then you're like,
Hmm.
okay, that's what they're doing, right? Like that's what they're not worried about. Or like for example, I've heard so many people that are like successful people that are like hire a chef and like don't clean your own house or don't mow your own lawn or like whatever. I was like, I don't why? Like it's just costing me money. Oh, well, you could save task on time and all that, right?
Yeah.
And then I would get around people for long, like Sam Ovens, right? For like long periods of time. And like something would come up and he's like, why aren't you doing this? Or why aren't you doing it? I'm like, well, I cut my grass on Saturdays or I do this on Saturdays or I do that. And he's like, oh, well, during that time I'm doing X. I'm like, oh, that's so like there
That's
is a
why.
reason for it, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
like I pay, someone cuts my grass. I don't cut my grass, right? Like, and I have friends and like even my mom and like my family's like, you don't cut your own grass. Why would you spend the money on it? Like, I'm like, yeah. Why would I cut my own grass? Like my time is way better spent than that, even if it's just reading a book. Are you
Yeah.
kidding
Your
me?
time is valuable.
Like what? Like I charge thousands of dollars for stuff. My time per hour is insanely valuable. And by the way, if I am going to do this, my time is limited. I would rather pay someone $100 to cut my grass and spend that hour with my wife.
Yep.
Way better use of my time, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
so, but underlying this, I feel like we could probably wrap it on this thought is this is why the money game is important. Because like I hear people all the time that are like, Josh, you don't need like I can live a great life and not be rich. Or like, riches don't make you a good person or a bad person, or money is not the only thing that matters or whatever. I'm like, you are 100% correct. You are. Here's the issue with your thing though, is that in order for you to be the best person, number one, you have to dedicate a lot of time to that. And number two, like you have to have the resources to actually go through and do this. And so if you don't get your money right, guess what? You're spending all the time at work rather than working on your relationship. You're spending all the time at work rather than like working on your business or working on, your personal development. You don't have the ability to like my wife, we're going to have a kid, right? And she's like, I want to go on a baby moon, the last big one. I'm like, oh, that actually makes total sense, right? So we're going to Mexico for 5 days, right? Like that is that 5 days of us like just spending our last time together and and like investing in each other and just being alone and unplugged. Like that's a big deal. Well, guess what? If you don't have money sitting around, or if you don't have the ability to go and do that, guess what? You're not doing that. Instead, what you're going to do, you're going to be like, well, we'll make it work and we'll go out to Arby's or we'll splurge. We'll go to Applebee's or Olive Garden, right? And we'll have an
Yeah.
afternoon or whatever. And that'll be the thing. I'm like, okay, well, guess what? I am going to hire a personal trainer. I am going to go out and, pay someone else to mow my grass so I optimize my time on personal development. I'm going to go, why? Because I've got the money game right, right? I've got the
Yep.
money game right. So money has nothing to do with making money. It has everything to do with money allows you to go and not do, right?
Yeah. It
Not
allows
waste
you
your
to
time on these
allocate
things,
time.
right? So like
Yeah.
you, if you're a barber right now, or you, if you're a coach right now, or an entrepreneur right now, or whatever, and you're like, have lied to yourself, as we all do, that more money won't make you happy, or that, oh, I'm okay to just figure this out because I'm taking my time or blah, 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 whatever. Here's just a little piece of advice. Number one, okay. All of my life, I have felt trapped. I grew up without money. Every single decision we made my entire life was around lack of money, right? Whether we went to the grocery store, whether we went on a trip, but it was all like, what's money? What's money? What's money? All of it, right? So I thought, I was like, I want to be free. I want freedom. I want the ability to not make decisions on best what's for me based on money. I thought if I just went and got money, that would make me free. Guess what? Started a business, made a bunch of money, saw these people killing it. We made more money than me. They were just as trapped as I was when I was broke, right? Because they were a slave to their money. The goal is not money. My message to you is this: you can be free, actually free. You can be free in your finances and in your health and in your life and in your relationships, whatever. You can have the most amazing life ever, right? You can.
Right.
But that requires time and effort to be dedicated in that. And in order to buy your time back, you need money. So stop lying to yourself that you're okay with making your 40 grand, 60 grand, 100 grand, 300 grand, whatever it is a year that you're making, and go, if you want to get to the next level of your life, of your relationships, of your personal development, of your health journey, that is fueled by money. So go get your money right. Study influence, study persuasion, study what that takes. Learn how to charge more for your skills. Learn that, because that will give you the life that you want to live. Right.
Well, I cannot think of a better message to end this session on. So thank you, Josh, for coming on the show. This was awesome. Incredible
Yeah, man.
conversation. You're the
Yeah,
man.
dude. Good to have, or good to talk to you.
Thanks, man. We'll catch you next time.